We're live. So thanks for joining us, everyone. Today we've got Ian Stewart, the winner of the Cape Wrath Ultra race that happened a couple of weeks ago with us. So we're going to ask Ian a few questions on how the race went, how he prepared for it, and just how life's been afterwards. So how are you doing, Ian?
Yeah, good, thanks. Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, well, you're looking good there in your nice new studio. And what's that behind you I can spot? Is that a little trophy?
It's quite a big trophy, actually.
Awesome. That's really good. How heavy is that? What's that made of?
It's heavier than it looks. It's a massive chunk of aluminium. I think drop it on your foot and you'd know about it.
Yeah. No, it looks really good. Well earned. Excellent. So the Cape Wrath Ultra, to anyone that doesn't know, is a 400-kilometre race through the northwest of Scotland. It's not really like a trail race, is it? It's more like an expedition because it's over 8 days. So we'll get Ian to give us a brief description as to what the Cape Wrath Ultra actually is.
Yeah, the Cape Wrath Ultra follows the Cape Wrath Trail, but it's very much different to like the West Highland Way or something like that. It's a trail in the sense that there's a guidebook that suggests some routes, and it does follow some good sections of path and trails in some places, but then to link it all together, there are big sections of open rough hillside, so it's definitely more of a sort of hill, fell, mountain race really than a trail race in that sense.
And you need to be good at your navigation to do this race, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, a lot of it is on trails and paths and even the odd section of road, but yeah, there's some rough cross-country sections as well. Yeah, so a lot of people were just navigating on GPS, on the watches and phones and things, but it's definitely an advantage to be able to look at the map and make some sense of it, definitely.
Yeah. I didn't think there would have been people like that. I thought it would have been much more like an orienteers race where everyone's got map and compass in the hand. I didn't realise people would be following GPSs.
Probably most people were using some sort of GPS. I think probably 50 or 60% of the field didn't look at the map at all, and they were just on electronic.
Okay.
There's another big chunk that probably were mostly on the map but had a GPS as a backup.
Yeah.
I might have been the only person that didn't have a GPS at all. I just did it all.
Kind of worked out well for you.
Map and compass. So there were. I think I got the compass out of my bag twice during the week. Most of it is relatively straightforward, but yeah, the cloud was down on day 6 going over one of the high coals, so I had the compass out at that point as well. Okay.
So let's have a look. So day 1, I've got a few notes here. So day 1 was a 37-kilometre jaunt. So talk us through that. That started at Fort William and ended at Glenfinnan. So Glenfinnan, for anyone that doesn't know, is the big viaduct on all the Harry Potter films where the train goes across. So super picturesque. The whole route on the Cape Wrath is just the most scenic landscapes you're going to get anywhere. So how did day 1 start?
Yeah, it's a really cool route. The whole thing is basically 400k, but it's split into stages. Yeah, so it's a stage race in the same way that Tour de France or something is. So some of the days are a bit shorter. First and last day are a bit shorter, and then some of the days are a bit longer. So yeah, Glenfinnan day 1 is a nice easy warm up in a way. Really, it's a bit cruel that you start. So you get the little ferry, the little boat across from Fort William to the other side of the Narrows on Loch Linnhe, and it's a bit cruel. You start off with 10k of road, but you also start off heading south.
What?
You've got to get to the northwest corner of Scotland, but the first 10k is down the road to the south before you hook into Cona Glen and get onto the trails to go through Glenfinnan. So yeah, it's very easy to get carried away on the first day.
Yeah, and did you get carried away? Because you led the race from day 1, didn't you?
Yeah, so I had a very strict rule for myself of a maximum speed that I wasn't going to go above on that first day.
Right.
So if the faster folk in the race had headed off, I told myself I was going to let them go and not burn myself out too much on the first day, because I was the strongest runners in the field. I was expecting to be the 3 ladies,
Yeah.
Sally Crossett, GB Ultra runner, Lisa Watson, who won the Dragons back in 2019, and then Sabrina Verjee, who, we all know who Sabrina Verjee is. So I was definitely expecting them to sort of lead the race, really. So I was quite surprised that as we headed out on that first bit of road, it was pretty sociable. Actually, there was a lot of chat, and it wasn't that fast. It was quite a comfortable pace, which definitely worked in my favour. I wasn't going to be pushing on at all at that stage, because that was definitely my potential weakness with those, faster sections.
Yeah. And did you didn't go beyond your speed that you said you wouldn't?
No, maybe for the odd little 50 meters here or something, but
right, you just had to catch yourself.
It was pretty much stayed within that bracket, so it was all good. And then as we headed up through the glen, naturally we just sort of slightly drifted apart, and I ended up with a very small gap going over the col. There's a sort of steepish climb up to the first col, and from there it's quite runnable but sort of rough single track. And I thought I'll just get to the front for that and see what happens on the descent, see how the couple of people that were following me, what they were like on the rougher trails. And I without trying too hard, I totally left them behind. So I was quite surprised really to end up in the lead at the end of that first day. But
did you have a game plan initially? Did you think, right, I'm going to go for this, I'm going to try and win, or did you just go along with a more of a mindset of I'm going to enjoy it?
Well, definitely not the first one.
Right.
Hopefully the second one. Yeah, definitely enjoying it. But like on an event like that, 8 days, if you get drawn into racing and being pushed to somebody else's pace, then you can totally knacker your chances. You might gain 20 minutes one day and lose an hour the next because you've overdone it. So I was very much focused on running my best 8 days that I could.
Yeah. Okay.
So if the other folk on that first day had been a bit faster or a bit slower, I might have ended up a bit more ahead or a bit behind.
Mm-hmm.
But the pace that I went was the best pace, not the best pace possible, but
what you kind of set yourself for the 8 days. You're trying to pace it, which is obviously what you should do. So you've run this race before in 2018, haven't you? And you completed it then. So what did that help you hugely this time round? Or
definitely. It was a very different experience second time round. So the first time, it was just amazing, mind-blowing week, really. Like, I knew most of the geography, but putting it all together in one go was really special. And it was the first sort of big multi-day thing that I'd done.
Yeah.
So that was great. But I was pretty broken by the end of it. After day 4, I'd got a bit carried away and I was hobbled for the second half. So it was pretty emotional. Really. Getting going each morning. It was definitely not type 1 fun, probably not even type 2 fun, really.
Right.
So I knew what was coming in every sense of the word, really. So I was much better prepared this time around.
And what did you change for your training to get prepared?
I mean, some of it is just 3 more years of consistent higher mileage. The year that I did it, 2018, was the first year that I ever ran 1,000 miles in a year. And I've done consistently more than that the last few years. So that makes a big difference. Yeah, most people are broken by the event because of the terrain.
Yes. Yeah.
Picking up injuries and things, lots of IT band issues, but loads of tendonitis and things, ankles and shins. So I spent quite a lot of time doing some sort of strength and conditioning stuff.
Okay, good.
For that as well. So knowing what was coming, I think helped.
Right. Yeah.
It definitely helped in terms of preparation.
For sure.
And then on the day, I think it made every day feel a bit shorter because you knew what was coming a little bit more.
Okay. And the length of the days varied quite a lot, didn't it? As you were saying there, the first day was 37K, whereas day 2 it was a bit more trail and track than track and road. And that was 57 kilometers, wasn't it? So you were upping your mileage and getting a a bit more varied terrain there?
Yeah, so the average is 50k a day, but day 2, 6, and 7 are the long days. I think day 6 is the longest at just shy of 70k. So they're definitely the big days of the week. But then the shorter days have got some pretty rough bits in as well. So each day's got its own sort of challenges, really.
And when you started each day, because on day 2, how did the start off? Did you all start off all at once, or did you have staggered starts?
So on day 1, obviously, it's on your mark, set, go. You all set off together. But every other day, there's a window between 7 and 9 that you're allowed to set off. Obviously, the cut-off times are the same for everybody.
Yeah.
So if for the slower end of the race, people were very keen to be out at exactly 7 o'clock to give themselves as long as possible through the day.
Yeah.
To hit those cut-offs. But without so much pressure in terms of cut-offs, I could kind of do what I wanted, really.
So you weren't allocated a time you have to start at 8:45. You could choose.
Yeah, not specifically. So obviously the logistics for the event are amazing, and the whole sort of camp, when the runners set off, the whole camp's taken down, driven around windy Highland roads and put up again in the next field. So the organisers are quite keen that the fastest runners don't set off at 7 o'clock, because potentially you could arrive in the next camp before they've built it.
Yeah.
So they would prefer us to start a little bit later, which is fine by me.
Right.
To be honest, not worrying too much about the cut-offs. I was happy to have a slow start.
Yeah.
And have an extra coffee and a second breakfast and a bit of time to wake up and get moving before I started racing. So I was pretty relaxed about setting off later each day.
Okay.
Which I think, since I've been home, gave the dot watchers a bit of concern.
Yeah.
If, you turn on it, look at the first dot at 10 o'clock in the morning or something, and I'm an hour behind everybody else.
Yeah, I'd be doing that. I'd be having a look on the dot watch and think, why is everyone else up here and you're all the way down there? But then it kind of clicked. So leaders must start off later on. So it sounds really civilized that they put up all the tents and then transport everything and reset up camp at the next place. So is it very civilized? What sort of time of day did everyone finish? Did you all gather together in the evening, eat together and chat? Or
it's really well organized event. So by the time you arrive at camp, there'll be some food available, chips and soup and stuff immediately, and then a proper evening meal from about 6 in the evening, and all your tents are set up and everything. So on the shorter days, I think we were getting in around 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So then, usually it wasn't too midgy at that point. So that would be time for the faster runners to jump in the river and have a wash and a cool down, have a bit of a stretch, have a chat. And it was all pretty friendly, really. For the slower end of the field, even on those shorter days, it was maybe 5 o'clock that they were getting in, and then on the long days, 8, 9, 10 o'clock. So the event is definitely harder for the slower runners. The guy that finished, the slowest finisher, spent 36 hours more than me on the course during the week.
Right. Okay.
Just staggering.
Because you finished it in 50 something, didn't you?
Yeah. 50 something. Not just in terms of the time they've spent out, but that's 36 hours less eating, sleeping, faffing with kit. I honestly don't know how you fit 36 more hours into that week.
He must be totally broken now. He must be still recovering.
Oh, I'm sure he is. Yeah, physically he was okay. I don't think he was too injured, and he was always in good spirits. Good, but just getting his money's worth out of the course.
yeah.
But he'll have been up at 5, out at 7 every day, in at 9, 10 o'clock, grabbing a quick bit of food, straight to bed, and repeat. Phenomenal.
Was there team briefs beforehand, like this is what to expect on today's leg, or?
No, a couple of notes on the whiteboard, but all of that was done in advance of the week. Yeah.
Okay. Right. And when you started off in the mornings, So you had everyone to kind of overtake, catch up. Did you actually get to run with people, or were you constantly just running past people?
I ran most of the week on my own.
Right.
From day 3, starting day 3, I had a bit of a gap on Sally and Lisa, who were closest behind.
Yeah.
So partly to take the stress out of it for myself in terms of always guessing how they were doing and did I need to be going faster to stay ahead of them. I ran with them for quite a lot of day 3, which was really nice actually. Like it was friendly competition, but it was really really sociable. So it was nice to have some company for that. And then a couple of the other days I would catch up with them and run with them for a bit at different parts of the day. So I ran with the girls a little bit, but apart from that, it's mostly on my own.
So Sally and Lucy, they came 2nd and 3rd overall in the whole race, didn't they? And I know they ran fair chunks of it together, so they were probably helping each other along, weren't they?
Yeah, definitely. And they ran 95% of it together. So, it can definitely help to have folk with you.
Yeah.
And day 7, I was pretty tired. And
well,
can you believe? Would have liked a bit of company on that day, I think. But
right. So what day was that on? Day that was 61k. So it was day 6 was 72k. So that's probably the one that really tired you out.
Yeah, and it's got like 30k of really runnable track in the middle. So I definitely knew that that's where I would lose out potentially to some faster runners. So
okay.
My advantage was on the hillier, rougher bits.
Lots of it's like boggy, totally pathless, just make your own. So with that, is there like a definite line when you're on something boggy, pathless? How easy is it for people to just venture off the wrong way?
I think it definitely helps to have proper mountain running experience at that point. Yeah, so there is a suggested line on the map.
Yeah.
And it probably is the best line. Graham, who's the course planner, has done a lot of time on the ground. So that probably is the best line, but there's nothing on the ground to show you that.
Okay.
So navigation there definitely comes in a little bit.
And
also just general mountain experience, looking at a bit of hillside and knowing that bit's going to be boggy, so it's worth going around it and that sort of thing.
Yeah. And then the weather was pretty kind to you, was it? It looked okay on some of the pictures I saw.
Yeah, it could certainly have been a lot worse. We had a great start to the week, really nice and sunny, and then a few sort of showery days, but nothing that would be worth putting a waterproof on, really. And then towards the end, day 6 and 7 had some pretty heavy showers. I think the worst of the weather actually was the evening of day 6.
Yeah.
And I think the worst of it came through actually, luckily for me, by the time I was in camp. But some of the slower finishes got absolutely hammered with the rain coming over the last hill on that day.
Yeah. Okay. And how about food? Did you have to be totally self-sufficient from when you started until you finished each day, or were there like aid stations along the route?
Yeah. So on the trail, you're self-sufficient. So you've got a certain sort of baggage allowance for the week.
Yeah.
When you leave Fort William, and that's got to include all of your hill food for the week. So
hill food as in when you're out on the course, not evening meals and such like.
Yeah, so just out on the course. Yeah. So you've packed 8 little bundles of food for each day. So that's quite tricky in a way to get right, because the nice fresh things that you'd maybe like to eat on a run, wraps or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
You can't really do for 8 days. So it meant lots of drier stuff, which gets a bit tedious after 8 days. But then, the moment you cross the finish line, all your in-camp food is provided, and it's really good. Loads of it.
So you can really fuel up afterwards.
Yeah.
Did you struggle with feeding on the run? Or?
No, I did okay actually. I was getting a bit bored of it by the end.
Yeah.
But I think partly it went well for me this year because I ate more than I've ever eaten on the trail before. I I had a fairly aggressive carbohydrate intake strategy, which I pretty much stuck to most days actually. So that definitely helped. And then in the evening I was eating 2,000 or 3,000 calories each evening probably.
Right. Were you so like every 30 minutes you'd make sure you ate something, or did you have a bit of time strategy like that? Or?
It was like I'd estimated how long each day was going to take me, and I had for the day I was trying to work to 60 grams of carbohydrate per hour.
Okay.
And then I would just get it in whenever I could during the day. Yeah.
And you could take food on board, okay?
Yeah, I'm lucky. I think that I've never really struggled too much to eat.
Right. Okay. That's good. So lots of people can struggle with just eating and running, and what you think you're going to like to eat, you just can't stomach it. So sounds like you did quite well there.
Yeah, I had a couple of gels each day, just because I knew that I'd get bored of chewing.
Yeah. And did you feel any pressure as you were going along? So as the days went on, you were still in first place. The girls weren't too far behind you. Did they get to a point where you thought, actually, I've got a shot at winning this, but they're not far behind? Did the pressure build as it went on, or was it not like that at all?
There wasn't too much pressure because I always expected them to beat me.
Okay.
So I my best case scenario going into the week was to come in third behind Sally and Lisa, assuming that Sabrina would be taking it a bit easy after, it's not that long since she did her massive Wainwright's thing.
Yeah.
So I until about halfway through the race was kind of expecting them to disappear and take it off me, but because that's what I'd expected before I started, I wasn't too fussed by that. Right. And I had a comfortable enough buffer between the next male that, if I could still stay as male winner, that'd be fine.
Yeah.
As I went through the week, I was doing the maths of how much of a buffer I had, and expecting that long track section on day 6 to be the time that Sally would put on a show and disappear.
Yeah,
I'd kind of done the maths to think that even if she took 2 minutes a kilometre off me, I might just about be okay. So kind of the end of day 5 really was when I thought it was probably
could be
okay
in the bag.
If nothing went wrong. But it wasn't until I'd finished that day 6 that I thought it was kind of in the bag, assuming that nothing went wrong. So going up that last little climb, and then there's a really, really good quality rough runnable descent down to Inchnadanf. I had a bit of a moment there of enjoying myself, and I flew down that last descent because I was on a bit of a high, really thinking
that must be amazing. But having enough of a buffer to think, I've got this, I can enjoy it a bit.
Yeah, and also, I'd chatted to Lisa and Sally quite a lot by that point as well, so I kind of knew their thoughts as well. They were being quite open that, they had thought that they might take it back on me later in the week, but as the week panned out, they were quite happy having a bit of a holiday as well. So
yeah. So your legs were okay on that longer running section on day 6 or 7.
Yeah, I was quite pleased. I was pretty knackered by the end of it. The end of that track, there's maybe a kilometre or so of tarmac, and it just takes it out of you. It's just hard.
Yeah.
But I'd kept a decent pace up along it all, so I was pretty pleased with that, really. Yeah.
What are the midges like? Anyone out there that doesn't know what midges are, just Google Scottish midges. They're horrendous.
I think the midges must have eaten most of the wildlife. Yeah. So usually the event is in May, so it wouldn't be an issue at all. But beginning of August, the event this year definitely had potential to be pretty midgy, and it was. So the 2 camps either side of Torridon, so Achnarshalach at the end of day 3 and Kinlochew at the end of day 4, were both pretty horrendous for midges, to be honest. I've lived in the Highlands a long time now. I've spent a lot of time camping. I know about midges, but
you just have to keep moving.
Oh yeah, the Kinlochew campsite was pretty hideous.
Yeah, got to feel sorry for the folk here, the stewards, marshals, and helpers, volunteers who were just stationary. It must have been horrendous.
Yeah, I mean, luckily they'd all prepared and they'd all bought these full body mid-suit things. Getting in and out of your tent was the hardest bit. You know, there's only so much you can do to not let midges in. If you're covered in midges, once you dive in your tent and zip it up as quick as you can,
yeah, they're in there with you.
You got to spend the next 20 minutes killing all the midges. So yeah, I mean, it didn't make any practical difference to the week, but it was pretty hard on morale. On the morning of day 5, you know, not even being able to sit and eat your breakfast. You know, I was marching up and down the campsite trying to eat my breakfast. Morale was definitely a bit.
Yeah, I can imagine that stage of the race, everyone's feeling it, and midges are not going to help.
It didn't help. Yeah, so getting to the camp closest to Ullapool at the end of day 5, and it being a big open space with a nice breeze coming through it and no midges, and the sun was shining. That was definitely a highlight of the week.
And how about any other wildlife? Did you see anything else? Or it's very barren. It's very bleak out where you were. So did you manage to see anything?
Some pretty remote glens. A few good sea eagle sightings during the week, actually. Yeah, in Knoydart at Kinlochhorn, there were 2 just circling above the camp in the evening. Right. I don't know if they were just looking to pick off the slower runners.
Yeah, sure, they were sea eagles, not vultures.
Yeah, it did have a sort of Wild Westy kind of feel to it. And then the same up by Carliskew in Assynt as well, actually, as I was running one way down the side of the loch, this huge, big sea eagle was just coming straight towards me down the loch. So that was pretty cool to see.
Fantastic. I'll put a smile on your face.
Yeah, took my mind off it for a minute.
With the terrains, like, do you go over summits as such, or is it mainly like below the mountains?
It's kind of the line of least resistance, really, between the hills. But staying off the roads. So it's a few sort of moderate mountain passes. I think the highest pass is dropping down into Kintail, takes you up to about 700 meters.
Okay.
The other days, the high points is like 500 or 600 meters. But yeah, there's only one summit on the whole week, actually, which you wouldn't really pick out as being a summit. It's quite a sort of flat top of a.
Right. Okay. So there's no technical ridges and things like that.
No. There's the odd sort of rocky footpath, but there's no technical sort of mountain terrain in that sense. Yeah.
And how did it seem this time? Because this time there was a lot less competitors due to COVID. They'd had to strip the field right back. So did that give it a different feel to the race at all?
It definitely felt like a small race. That within camp it didn't make that much difference, because to make the logistics work, the sort of event staff were probably the same number of staff as it would be if there'd been 200 or 300 of us.
Yeah.
And there were always a few people out and about, you know, eating their dinner and whatever at the same time. So it didn't make that much difference in camp, but out on the trail, particularly because I was setting off towards the end, it made a big difference. So there were some days where I ran the first hour and a half before I saw anybody at all.
Okay. So what sort of kit did you use? What were you using on your feet? What sort of shoes? Did you take multiple pairs of shoes? Did your feet swell?
So it's a really interesting week in terms of footwear, actually, because every day has got a bit of everything.
Yeah.
You know, every day there are sections where you'd want something quite grippy. There's sections that are pretty hard underfoot, so you'd want, you know, something with a bit of cushioning. So there's no perfect shoe for the week, I don't think, and everything is going to be a little bit of a compromise to some extent. And even then, one day will be quite different to the next. So I went for the Innovate Terra Ultras, which were brilliant, actually. They were really good. You know, there were one or two of the sort of grassy, steep, wet descents where it meant I went slightly slower than I would have been if I was wearing, you know, some mud claws or something. But in amongst 8 days, that's not a bad thing, really.
I suppose. Yeah.
In terms of, you know, dealing with a bit of rough terrain, but then also being, you know, comfy for 400k of pounding.
And did you take multiple pairs of the Terra Ultras, or did you just have one or two pairs?
I didn't bother, to be honest. But, you know, they're pretty roomy anyway. So there were definitely some of the days where at the top of a steep descent, I would tighten the laces a bit and then get to the bottom and then ease them off again.
Okay.
Slightly. But yeah, they were fine. My feet didn't swell or anything at all during the week, so I was fine.
Mm-hmm.
I did have to help somebody squeeze into their shoes on the last morning, and they could have done with at least a size bigger. It was, their feet had swelled up quite a lot. So having a bit of experience to know how your body's gonna cope definitely helps in terms of that.
Yeah. And what about so like your pack, your race vest? What did you use for that?
Yeah, so quite a few people commented that I had the smallest bag in the race, but I had everything that it said on the kit list. If you go for lightweight waterproofs, a little emergency bivvy, and then the other few bits of emergency kit, head torches and things. If you've gone for lightweight versions of all of it, it quite comfortably fitted into my Salomon 5-litre vest.
Okay. Yeah.
And then stacks of food and things. It was totally fine. There were people running with 20, 25-litre bags. So
they need some new kit.
I think obviously if you're going a bit slower, you're out for longer. You might need to carry a bit more food. In which case, you might also want some more interesting food.
Yeah.
So I get that. You might want a bit more capacity for that, but yeah, I think it's well worth investing a little bit because the minimum requirements are still pretty good. You've got to have an insulating layer that's at least 300 grams of insulation and things, so it's a decent warm jacket. I wasn't compromised. I wasn't cutting corners in that sense. So yeah, I think a lot of people could have made their week easier with a bit of better kit.
Bit of lighter kit. And water, when you were running, were you just filling up in streams?
Yeah, I mean, the hills were surprisingly dry, actually, after the dry June, July that we'd had.
Yeah.
So there were less options than I'd expected, than you would normally expect. But even then, you never run more than 20 minutes in Scotland without a stream that you can fill up in. So I never carried more than 500 ml of water, with the exception of the long track section by Oakle Bridge, where I carried a second bottle because it was 20k or something without a good fill up option.
And did you use any electrolytes, any powders?
Yeah, I had Tailwind in pretty much every flask.
Okay. Yeah, that just helped.
Yeah, and it's just, again, keep that carbohydrate going in without having to chew anything.
Yeah. So talk us through the last day of when so the last day was a shortish day, wasn't it? Mm-hmm. But I think there's a bit of road, there's a bit of sand, there's a lighthouse. So
yeah, the last day is amazing, really. So you're in Kinlochbervie overnight. So there's a couple of K along the road out towards Shigra, and then really nice trail into Sandwood Bay, which is just totally stunning. It's just, and the sun was shining, the green waters, and yeah, it was really stunning. And then there's like 10k of pretty hilly, pathless, rough ground to finish.
Okay.
So it's not an easy day by any means, but it's half the length of the previous few. So in that sense, it kind of feels good. So a lot of people were just taking it as a victory lap, just really taking their time, enjoying the view.
That's good.
Taking selfies and walking together and enjoying it from that sense, which is brilliant. You can definitely do that. There's not really any pressure for anybody for cut-offs and things, so you can just go and have a nice day.
Right.
My aim for the week had always been about sort of putting together my best 8 days that I could. So although I had plenty of buffer, it sort of felt wrong to ease off like that. So it just, for the way I wanted to enjoy it was to thrash myself to the final bit. So I had a really good run and just felt really strong and enjoyed myself.
How long's that? Because I know there's a sand section towards the end. Sand towards the end of a race is just horrendous because it just zaps all your energy. How did you cope with that?
It's not that far. It's along the beach at Sandwood Bay. It's, I don't know, maybe 500 meters or something.
Oh, right. Okay.
I was I was on a bit of a flyer, so I was trying to run it all, hit the beach. Like, yeah, it's as bad as running on sand sounds like it's going to be. So I thought, oh, I'll just walk. I started walking, and it felt so unbelievably slow that I had to pick it up and try and run again.
Yeah. And did you have support at the end? Was Laura at the end, or?
So when you get to the lighthouse, you might as well be out on a desert island somewhere. It's the lighthouse is still a long way away from civilization, so nobody else comes out to that point, because from there it's like an hour's rough track in a minibus, and then you're still the wrong side of the Cala d'Ernest, so it finishes with a little ferry ride as well to get you back across towards D'Ernest. So Laura was up there, which was a surprise actually. She wasn't supposed to be, so that's very good.
Oh, that's nice. A good surprise. How about Reef?
Yeah, Reef the dog was up there as well. So they'd actually come up a day earlier, and they were waiting at the end of the road just before Kinloch Bervie.
Okay.
So I sort of came out, bashed my way through the bracken at the end of the trail, and they were stood at the end of the road waiting, which was a good surprise, a good morale boost, because that next sort of 5 or 8 kilometers along the road to Kinloch Bervie had been a pretty low moment in 2018. I was pretty broken, so a good morale boost was good at that point.
How about, so did you get much support or communication along the way? There wouldn't have been crowds out because you were in the middle of nowhere. So
so you don't really see anybody at all during the week. Even out on the trails, we weren't passing very many walkers or anything. A couple a day maybe. But the race organisers have got a good system where you can, from the outside, you can send messages in.
Yeah.
So you get the ultra mail. So as participants, each evening when you arrive in camp, you get a little printout of all the messages that people have sent. So that's always really nice. It's good.
Excellent. Good. And how's because this is a week later. How's your week been? What have you been up to?
Not very much.
You've been out for any runs?
I've not been anywhere or done anything. I've walked the 400 meters to Co-op and back a couple of times, but no, I've not done anything at all. I just thought I'd get a good rest after that. I've been pretty tired, eating loads, sleeping quite a lot of lunchtime naps. And it's felt like the right thing to do really. During the race, I was like, really using the foam roller and everything loads. I've not really bothered this week. I've just sort of let it all ease off. But I do feel like now I need to start doing something again. So get out for a bit of a walk and maybe an easy spin on the bike or something.
Yeah. Okay. I was going to ask, during the week, how did you sleep? Did you sleep solidly, or was it broken sleep?
Yeah, pretty well, to be honest. Pretty exhausted. So reasonably well. Yeah, like I said, the first people were up at 5 a.m, and there was the constant bang of Portaloo doors through the night.
Yeah.
But with earplugs in, I slept pretty well. Yeah, and it made a big difference in the middle of the week when we arrived in Torridon. It was a bit of an earlier arrive into the camp after the long day of day 3. I think I got 9 hours of total solid sleep. So it definitely hooked me up a bit for the next few days. Yeah.
And have you got any future plans coming up, or now is it just slowly get back into life, get back into work, as you have Trail Running Scotland? That's your business, isn't it?
Yeah, we've got our next sort of big Highland Grand Tour starting next weekend. So that's 100 and something K of running during the week, but I'm not going to do it all myself. I might not do very much of it. Joe, that's working with me, I think he's going to do the majority of the guiding for that, and I'll do the driving and have an easy week. I'm supposed to be racing the Glencoe Skyline middle of September. So we'll see how we go. Give it a couple of weeks and see how the energy levels are, and see if I can get back into the hills again.
And what sort of things have you got coming up for Trail Running Scotland? What can people go to your website, which is trailrunningscotland.org, is it?
.com.
Okay. What can they expect to see on there?
We've still got a few courses left for the end of the summer and the autumn. Pretty soon, we're crossing Torridon for our Torridon Explorer, so that's a really cool weekend just of guided running adventures, and then navigation courses and our trail running skills weekend to sort of bookend the season into October, November, including some courses down in the Pentlands.
Okay.
And then, yeah, definitely some space in the diary for some bespoke things as well. You know, people doing descending workshops and that sort of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then a little bit of, looking ahead to 2022 already. It's going to have to happen soon. So.
Yeah. Well, you'll just do the same courses and run guided tours next year as this year, or would you bring in some new
and then every year we try and add something new. So this year our Larry Grew crossings with the new bit that we added.
Yeah.
So yeah, there'll be a few extras added into next year as well.
And you do coaching as well, don't you? Because I think, am I right in thinking 3 of the other participants in the Cape Wrath, you actually coached them?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so that was our first.
Did they finish?
Being involved in the race. Yeah, so they all finished.
Excellent.
Everybody that had any coaching input from me finished. So that's I'm on 100% success rate. So I'm going to retire now, I think.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it was really good to see them actually. It was really good to see them. You know, to be supporting somebody else in the race as well was quite a nice distraction.
Yeah, perfect. Excellent. Well, I think we'll wrap it up there. So thanks very much for chatting to us, explaining to everyone what the Cape Wrath Ultra is and what it's like to run it and actually win it. So well done again, Ian.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Thanks for watching, everyone. Okay, we'll see you next time.